Right, okay. So today we're going to delve into the state of the UK rental market, exploring key trends, challenges, and most importantly, opportunities to you in 2025. So the UK rental market has always been dynamic, influenced by economic trends, demographic shifts, regulatory changes. And as we navigate through unprecedented times, understanding the current landscape is crucial for landlords, tenants, investors, and agents alike. We're going into the biggest change in the lettings history. So we have always been a very changing landscape. The landscape of lettings has always kind of evolved with different housing acts, tenant fee ban, which you may remember. But basically, we're heading into the biggest change. So hopefully today you'll get a lot from it. You'll understand the Renters' Rights Bill, where it's up to, and exactly the changes that are happening. Now, it's really, really important for me to, when we go into that start of the webinar, part of the webinar even, it's really important that these aren't definite yet. It has been passed, but it's in its amendment phase, and there's over 130 amendments currently that have to be looked at. So as much as it's black and white on the screen in front of you today, it's still very grey to us in the profession, in the industry. So take as much away from you today as you can from it, but that's exactly what we're going to look into. So market dynamics. So despite of economic uncertainties, demand for rental properties remains robust, which is good. It's all good for us. Driven by factors such as affordability, constraints, lifestyle preferences, and mobility among tenants. The regional disparities continue to shape the rental market, with cities like London experience higher rents and lower yields compared to smaller urban areas and rural regions as well. So it's really important if you're going into lettings or you are in lettings to understand your region demands. So here in the Northwest, rental prices aren't as high as what they are down south, and that is a massive, massive gap. So if you're becoming a lettings agent or you are a lettings agent, you need to make sure that your fees are correct and in line, that you will make money. And it's really good to know that your average rent in your local area as well. You're most probably looking at the screen and thinking pandemic impact. I haven't taken you back 5 years, don't worry, but we're still seeing massive market dynamic changes because of the pandemic. It's changed our lifestyles, it's changed landlords, how they want their letting management agents to act and how much they want to be contactable, and communication has changed, but also tenants' demands have changed, which obviously has an impact in our market. So the pandemic reshaped the rental preferences as we've seen, with a growing demand for property offering more space, outdoor amenities, and proximity to suburb or rural areas. So we did see people who have been in the city move out of city locations and go for a completely different lifestyle. And that was mainly due to the fact that remote working had a big impact and still has a big impact today. So the rise of remote work has influenced tenant behaviour, leading to increased demand, properties, and more for home office spaces and reliable internet connectivity. So you'll see on likes of Rightmove and Zoopla, 5, 10 years ago, the Wi-Fi and the connection in that area would never have been advertised. That is something that tenants are looking for. They're looking for that information. And we're going to touch on that slightly throughout the changes of what's happening in our industry over the next hour. But basically, the market dynamics are changing, and they're changing realistically because of the impact of the pandemic. So how can these changes create opportunities for new and growing letting agents? So with landlords being more invested in their portfolios than ever, the changes of the landscape and what is imminent, and it will be happening this year. Landlords are looking for professional agents more than ever. And they're unsure as what these changes will bring, and changes in the market and tenant demands as well. So our agents at Source Living, we give them most up-to-date information as we can by doing webinars like this. There'll be some of our agents online today. However, we need to make sure that as agent professionals, professional practitioners in the industry, we need to make sure that we're the most up-to-date. So we do have a network of agents up and down the UK, and they are the best in their local area, and they do offer amazing customer service. So we do ask our agents to go out there and strive and give the best customer service. And I think because the landscape of lettings is changing dramatically, landlords are looking at reviews. They are looking at agents' qualifications and their expertise. So we ask our agents to shout about their expertise. We do partner with able agents, which allows our agents to have all the resources and materials needed to gain their qualification. Now, Labour, once they came into power last year, they did say it will be mandatory for letting agents and agents in the property industry to be qualified. And it's massive to our industry. It's going to give us so much credibility and so much worth to landlords and tenants alike. So it's really important for agents to really demonstrate their expertise. And by having that qualification and being ahead of the game, so having that gaining that qualification before it is mandatory will only create a successful letting agent, because landlords are being really, really particular on who they are allowing to manage their portfolios, more so now than what they did maybe 5, 10 years ago. So we lean on good customer service. So customer service is key in any business, but in lettings, it's very personable. It's people's homes. People really want to be trustworthy with their agent. They want to be able to give their portfolio or their houses to an agent that they trust. But more importantly, the tenants, that's going to be their home for however long, and they really want to be able to rely on that good customer service from their landlord, from their agent. And that's something that we've strived to promote within Source Living. So by having reviews, by having testimonials on websites, by using social media to showcase, one, your qualifications and your expertise. You might have been in lettings for many, many years. You're the local expert in the area. But also by having good customer service, these are the foundations that you're going to need to have a successful lettings business. Marketing, it's huge now. Marketing is massive in terms of how you can single-handedly become the local lettings expert, and you don't need a big corporate behind you to, blow that trumpet. You can do that yourself, and that's with the power of social media. So your Instagram, your Facebook, and your TikToks, for example. LinkedIn is heavily getting, used now to, encourage landlords to use agent services. But from 10, 15 years ago, it's a completely different game changer now. And it means that it is a free tool for you, without having to have invest in a monetary worth into your business. It is timely, so it will be investing your time to promote yourself. But landlords are looking on Rightmove. They're looking to see who's got the most boards up in their local area doing a drive round. It is really, really crucial that your marketing activities, they can be old-fashioned, they can be online, but you need to be present. And what landlords are looking for now is to have that personable factor. They don't want to be with a corporate agent where they speak to different people in the office, or they can't get through on the phones because they're having their lunch. They want to be able to have communication lines that are really, really strong. And they know that if you're out on a viewing or you're doing a valuation, as your lettings business grows, they know that you're a priority to them. So basically, it's a two-way street, and it's really, really important. But likes of, your social medias, it's so important to demonstrate your expertise, good customer service, but also investing in being present in your local area. You want people to recognise you as the local lettings expert. So how to start or scale a lettings business in a way that actually works. So this is quite a comprehensive list here. I'm going to go into it on each bullet point, just so, I haven't got all the answers, but what we do know with, supporting our agents that come on, we do have varied levels of experience. So we have people that have 15, 20 years of experience that join Source Living. We also have newbies, people that really want to have a change in career, but build something for themselves and be able to say, that's me, when they see that to let board. And that's amazing. So there's a lot to talk about here. So if you're considering starting your lettings business, for one, you're in the right place today. So thumbs up, you've done great already. But it's crucial to understand the intricacies of this industry and equip yourself with the necessary knowledge and resources to navigate its complexities. Lettings is a complex industry. There is over 140 pieces of legislation for a let. Now, we don't use every piece of 140 legislations, but you need to be able to be confident of every letting scenario that may come about whilst you start up and starting to promote and grow your lettings business. So I'm going to go through this guide and we're going to explore the essential aspects that you need to consider. So this is kind of, it's only this slide, it's kind of, the guide that you're going to need to fundamentally put your foundations into place to, grow or scale your lettings business. So one, you see there, you need to understand the legal and regulatory landscapes. It's so important to keep up to date. This is why you're on this webinar, which is fantastic. And there's so many resources out there. If you put the writer's rents bill in, there will be thousands of documents, thousands of people talking to you at the screen, like me for today, that basically want to explain to you the importance and severity of this new change. But it's up to you. If it's your business, you need to know. Your members, team members need to know, and it's up to them. You're engaging in landlords that landlords don't have experience or even the expertise to understand some of these changes, and it's up to you to understand them. So keeping up to date is absolutely key. Develop a comprehensive business plan. Now, a business plan is so important. It needs to be relevant to you and your goals, what you want to obviously achieve, but it's your roadmap to obviously outlining how you're going to get to them goals. So the first things first, always be up to date with your compliance and changes and the landscape of lettings. However, if you haven't got that plan written down or you don't know what you want to succeed in year 1, year 3, year 5, 7, and 10, then you're going to be, a bit lost. So by having a look at your local area, conducting market research, going out and speaking to the other agents in your area, or even looking on their websites, what are they charging? What are the services that they're offering? And how are they going to be different to what you're going to offer? Also, look at your local area and its demand. Now, you might be in a city centre, so there might be a demand for serviced accommodation. There might also a demand for HMOs. You might be in an area that has big employers, so they want obviously HMOs. They can have their subcontractors out, or it might be an underdeveloped and it's going to have a lot of building work area, and there's a lot of development going on. Again, is it going to be traditional residential lets that's going to be your bread and butter of your business, or are you going to go down HMOs or serviced accommodation? By having that market research, that is part of your business plan. It will navigate you and lead you into the right way to making sure that your grounds, your foundations are laid out from the very beginning. So build a strong team and foster expertise. So we don't know it all. We can't all know it all. And I've got an amazing, strong team behind me. And obviously being part of Sourced as well, there is so many people with years of experience in this one building in our head office that I can lean on. But from your point of view in your lettings business, it's crucial that although you want to bring all that onto yourself, have the conversations with local people. You might, in year 1, it might just be you. That's absolutely fine. Join webinars, join forum groups, network, be with people that are like-minded like yourself. But as you continue to grow your business and as you scale up, you will want to obviously start employing staff. Employ people who have got experience. Don't be intimidated by that experience. They will only bring growth and build on what you've already built. So it's going to bring success. So although you might only have just been starting out now, there might be somebody that is itching to have that promotion and get their teeth around something that they really want to build. And that might be somebody that is perfect for your business. They want to go out there and promote it and build something with you. Use them. They might have more experience. So by having the expertise around you and having a strong team, it will make it easier as you grow. So digital document software is key for contracts. So obviously that is very, very, black and white. We all know that. But documents are becoming obviously electronic. We are miles away, years away from obviously paper tenancy agreements, landlord brochures, terms and conditions. So we need to make sure we audit that they are signed, they have been reviewed, and they are date stamped as well. So it's important to have that set up. It does cost, but in the long run, it'll benefit you because when somebody moves into a property, there's a lot of emotions that come with that. Again, with landlords will know what they want and they'll know how that transaction's meant to happen. So by having your documentation, the correct software, by investing in that, that will help you. It will also show credibility and it will also show that you're proactive as well. So comprehensive marketing strategy, that is crucial. It doesn't have to be done at the very beginning now. Investment opportunities in terms of marketing will be at your door from the minute that people know that you're a new lettings business or that you are scaling up. We've seen this with some of our agents, and some of our agents go in two separate directions once they're starting out on their journey, and that's fabulous to see and watch. Some people invest in social media advertising. They have a marketing agency that they want to deal with, and they go to that right at day one. Whereas some people would rather lay the foundations in their local area and go to the correct and the right networking groups for them in their areas as well. That is crucial, and there's no wrong or right way to do it. Obviously, social media is massive, and it is a fantastic tool to get landlords into your business, but also being the face and voice of your business and being in your local area does also work as well. A lot of landlords are just normal human beings. They will go to networking events themselves. So never rule out networking. It's the best way to get that first board up in your local area by striking up a relationship, a working relationship with a landlord. Boards breeds boards. I say this and have said this for many, many years. Once you get your first board up, it's the best marketing tool, especially if that property is on a main street. If it's not and it's on a cul-de-sac, a close, put it at the beginning of the street. Don't put it on the property. People will drive past, and people love still getting in the car and looking, getting off their phones, getting off Rightmove and Zoopla, and looking and going out and seeing what boards are up there. So boards are really important. It is old style marketing, but it's still classed as marketing. So put a marketing strategy plan together. Prioritise exceptional customer service. Now, I will bang this drum during today's webinar. Customer service is key to any successful lettings business. Picking up the phone, communication, that all drives good good customer service. A landlord doesn't want to be out of the loop of his property or his portfolio, whereas a tenant wants to be up to date for their home, kept up to date for their home. So it's really, really important that you have the basis of customer service. Good customer service is your priority. Now, if you're starting out in lettings, the likelihood is you're doing that because you've been a landlord or you might have been a tenant and you've had and received really bad customer service. And that's where you've thought, I can do this myself and I can do this better. And that's why you're here. That's why you're on this journey of starting or potentially starting your lettings business. And that is, we are seeing that movement within the industry. We are seeing professionals that have been corporate for many, many years thinking, I can do better, I can offer better, and I know better. So customer service is key, especially with this industry. There's a lot of emotions because it is people moving into houses. Embrace technology and streamline processes. I can't advise the right software for your lettings business enough. Nobody wants to be members or pay memberships to different softwares that will do one thing. So it'll do the tenancy agreement for you. It will send out viewing texts, or it will list the property on your property portal, whether that be Zoopla or Rightmove or whatever portal that you're on. By having them independently and having different logins, it will only be a bit of a mess for your business. Now, as you most probably all know, lettings is very fast paced. It's a very fast paced industry. And as professionals, we spin a lot of plates. Now, it is massively loads of fun and it can be really, really rewarding, but we need to make sure that there is a process, and having a streamlined process will really help with your software. As Source Living, we have a package and we do offer bespoke CRM with integrations. So our agents have everything at a click of a button. It pre-populates tenancy agreements. And the biggest bugbear for me in my career when I was at branch level was the duplication of data entry. So we've tried to get away from that. So we're not putting the same details in for the same landlord because he's a multi-landlord and he's got over 5 properties. So we've tried to make sure that the software that our agents use kind of makes it a real just click button exercise, and it's really paperless and everything's audit trails, everything's date stamped, and everything's in a nice place so our agents know where to look for it as well. So it's really, really important to have them processes streamlined through software. Embrace technology, establish strong relationships on landlords and tenants. Tenants are the key driving force. They're the ones that keep the boat going in the direction towards the end of the tenancy or staying there for a long time. Landlords are key. They're key at the very beginning, and that's a strong working relationship because one landlord will know another landlord, and a landlord might have multi-landlords or multi-properties. So it's really, really important to have them strong relationships, but never appreciate your tenants, because tenants will either situation change, they might have moved in with you when it was just them as a partnership, they might be going on a new job, they might need a bigger house, they might get a dog, they might have children, they might have their elderly mother moving in with them. There's all different scenarios that tenants, once they have good service off an agent, they particularly stay. The only reason why tenants aren't very loyal to agents is that the property that they want is with another agent. But if you can demonstrate that you are a good agent, they will want to stay with you. So again, this all goes back to streamlining your processes, good customer service. It all interlinks into how actually it can be beneficial for you and your business. Ensure compliance and with health and safety regulations. Now, this is a big one, and you're not health and safety, advisors. That's not your job, and that's something that you do need to consider with your lettings business. And that's where inventory clerks are so important within your business. Have them in your back pocket. Have them as part of your team. Now, they may be a third party. It might be somebody that you already know. You may have to pay for that, and you can recruit that back from the landlord setup fees. However, it's really important that you really understand the health and safety regulations of property. But by having your inventory clerk conduct and compile a comprehensive document to give to your landlord, that will give trust for your landlord to know that he's with the right agent and you are offering the best service. And again, with the tenant's copy of the inventory as well. So by having them regulations and knowing them, it's just more confidence when you are speaking with landlords on winning instructions and going out and networking as well. Stay up to date with industry trends and regulations. So that's something that is very much paramount at the moment and through this webinar when we go into the writer's rent bill in a minute. You need to be up to date, and it is your responsibility. If you're part of a franchisor like us, although it is our responsibility and obligation to our franchisees to keep them up to date and on track, and we love doing that, and we love supporting our agents, ultimately you're the ones that are going to be out there face to face with your landlords. So it's really important that you're up to date, and I can't stress that enough. There is so much resources out there's so many resources out there, and the government are being really transparent and having everything detailed and updated on the government website, and we'll share that link with anyone that wants it at the end of the webinar. But it's really important that you stay up to date. Industry trends as well. So when the tenant new fee ban came in, it was really had to act on that. You don't want to be lagged behind because you're not up to date. Sign up to emails, sign up to daily emails from landlord today, letting agent today. There's all this information at our fingertips that can really strengthen and help you scale up your business and even start your lettings business as well. And then your strong business reputation, that goes off recommendation. Like I say, boards breed boards. You're only going to get boards if you get landlords talk. They look at forums. They're on Facebook groups in the local area to see who's advising, giving advice out in the local area as well. So landlords go on Rightmove and they go on the property portals to see who has the most properties to let. Now, that used to be a massive drive for agents. We all wanted all the landlords because we're greedy and we're hungry. But now, because there's been a bit of a shift in the industry, if you're going down the bespoke lets agent route, you can be really picky, and you can be really selective on what landlords you want to work with, and say you only take on 5 a quarter or take on 3 a month. That is totally your call, but that shows that you want to give the best level of service to not only the landlord but the tenant. But you're also very selective, and you're not taking any properties on just to get that property on because you're not in a corporate. You haven't got a target hanging over your head. It's your business, and you care the most. So that's everything that you're going to need to know. That I've tried to do it as quickly as possible so you can see, and condense it so you can see. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what you need. You've got to remember that the property market is ever evolving, and adaptability is key. So if you can adapt with the market trends in your local area, if you can adapt with the letting changes that's happening with our government changing our industry, then they'll go hand in hand. If you can educate your landlords on your local platforms, on your social media, if you've got the confidence to update them, that again, that builds reputation. You're the go-to expert, and it makes absolute sense for that landlord to entrust you with their property. So I hope you're sitting comfortably, because we're going to be going into the Renters' Rights Bill, and I'm going to explain it in some detail. So if you didn't know or you haven't been reading it, you have been under a rock. It's been everywhere. And the media have picked it up and ran with it. And they have tried to say that landlords are leaving. They're absolutely going from the market and they're selling up. And that's not nearly the case. It is a case in some pockets of the UK. But what you need to remember is the landlords that are going to be selling are the landlords that had the properties for quite some time. So they might be landlords coming up to 30, 40 years of having a portfolio or a select property number of properties, or maybe just the one. They want to go, too much red tape, and that's absolutely fine. The likelihood is that them landlords that will leave the lettings market, the rental market, their portfolios, their properties will be bought by a younger, newer, established landlord. So there isn't anything to worry about the market. The market is robust, as I said at the beginning of this webinar today, and I truly believe we are going to see that for the next couple of years as well. So the next 5, 10 years, we should see a robust lettings rental market in the UK. So the Renters' Rights Bill had its third reading in January. So January the 14th, I think it was, 14th or 15th of this year, it had its third reading in the House of Commons, largely bringing its movement through the House of Commons, and it did actually get passed. So it is passed, it passed with ease, and all the government amendments were accepted. They're still having amendments as well. And like I said to you, there's over 134 amendments, and you can look at them individually if you really wanted to and see which member of Parliament has said they need these amendments looking at, and it's all very much detailed. So I do strive for you to go on the government website. So what will happen now? What is the next step? So it will now head over to the House of Lords with royal assent possibly happening in the spring. So I think I'm going to change my mind on that. And I don't think it's going to be spring. It's the first day of spring tomorrow. I can't see it happening in the next couple of weeks. My gut and what I'm hearing in the industry, going to property market conferences, it's most likely going to be in the warmer climate, but it's most likely going to go to royal assent in the summer. And it seems appropriate at this stage to run through the main changes of the bill and what these are likely to mean to us as professionals, landlords, tenants as well. If there's any tenants on here, you need to understand exactly what this is going to mean. And like I said to you at the very beginning, it's all still very grey. So everything that I speak to you about today on these next couple of slides, and there is a few, and we've got half an hour, so get comfy. They're not 100% set in stone. The everything that I'm going to discuss, it's very much in the sky. We don't know as professionals what's going to happen. We've not seen anything in regards to databases. Everything's very, very closed book, and we don't really understand how it's going to look like and how long the time frame is of things to be implemented. But just so you've got an understanding of what it could potentially look like, and these are the changes that you're going to need. And like I say, there are through. So let's start with the biggest one. So Section 21 and fixed terms. So one of the key changes is the loss of Section 21 notices, which allows for possessions without giving a reason. This is often called a non-fault eviction, but as around 75% of Section 21 notices are issued for very good reasons, I do believe that this is a bit of a contradiction. So I think of this more as an eviction without the landlord having given a specific reason, if that makes sense. So sometimes this is to the benefit of the tenant, because if the truth was told, they will find it hard to get another property. Other times it is for the benefit of the landlord, who may not have the strongest case for possession if reasons had to be given, or might find themselves facing a defence to possession if the property is not up to living standards. So there's all different scenarios, but basically in any event, going forward, all possession claims will need to fit into one of the grounds for possession. While these have been expanded, they're all somewhat altered, and we're going to cover and it won't cover every scenario. So we're going to go and have a little look at them now, okay? So the biggest change is the elimination of fixed terms. This will have impact in lots of areas. For tenants, they will gain a lot of flexibility and will not be bound into long tenancies in unsuitable properties. And that's really the main drive of the Writers' Rent Bill. Landlords will, of course, lose certainty and will be at risk of void periods. This will put pressure on them to keep their properties market ready. So, for example, by updating EPCs and attending to works in a smaller time frame. But it's not all positive. Landlords of student properties will lose the push factor of a fixed term, which gives them the confidence to let to further students well in advance of their desired occupation date. So for anyone that does student lettings or looking to do student lettings, what currently happens in the student market is around about, well, this time, around about now, the students will be looking to leave in May. And the landlord will already have their prospective tenants that will move in at the end of August, possibly beginning of September. They will already have them lined up because they will have marketed the property back in September of last year, possibly maybe October, November. That the renters' rights bill is going to eliminate that. And there's reasons for that, and we're going to delve into that. But basically, that explains that for anyone who doesn't do student lettings. So that's basically why. Um, yeah, so it's going to be a bit of a funny one for landlords. But if you're not doing student let, it's absolutely fine. Okay, so I think there are ways around the fixed term issue for both landlords and tenants in specific cases. Some landlords will move to licenses or other forms of lettings, which will allow retention of fixed terms. These are not simple to achieve, but they can be done in certain areas and certain councils. I'm also of the view that tenants can contract with landlords in such a way that the landlord agrees not to use specific grounds of possession, those relating to sale and the landlord or the family moving back in. So basically, if the landlord said, well, my family's moving back in, that was a grounds of getting vacant possession. And that could have been a complete lie. So that's where it was non-fault. So what was I saying then? So that would be allowed for security of tenants, but it will be a decidedly one-way street. So if a landlord and a tenant done an agreement, it's not really something that will be seen as fit for purpose. And I think it would only benefit tenants who are wealthier because they most probably would spike up the rent. The rent will be higher. And there would be like an end date, but that's not the way forward. And that's what the government really want to strive away from. So all possession will have to be by Section 8 notice, another big headline. This comes with increased risk as the government will be able to change the format of the notice by simply changing it on the government website without having to pass any form of statutory instrument and therefore can essentially change the notice without warning. So in addition, neglectingly or willfully serving a defective notice or relying on grounds that have no foundation will be an offence and will permit civil penalties to be levied by local authorities. This will create new risks for landlords, obviously, and agents, and is likely to lead to more of these notices being served for legal possessions, which is likely to lead to increases in costs. So there is a worry about costs for landlords and for agents. We're going to have to put up our fees. Our notice is going to be able to be served properly. It's asking a lot of questions. So the requirement to give notice before the start of the tenancy is removed for some grounds, although it is retained for the new student possession of ground 4A. There are also a lot of new possession grounds to cover various scenarios which were previously served by Section 21s. However, a lot of those grounds are specifically reserved to social landlords or those providing supported accommodation. So it's really important to read up and know your landlords and their properties and what they use their properties for. New grounds are brought in for landlords looking to sell their properties and for landlords letting to students, but these have caveats. Ground 1A for sale by the landlord cannot be used during the first 12 months after occupation. In addition, once the notice is served, there is then a 16-month block-out period. So that's the 4 months of the notice period itself, plus another 12 months, during which the property cannot be marketed for sale or for let, including any form of short let, holiday let, or any type of license let. So therefore, if a sale is not achieved, the property will have to sit vacant. So this is huge. So like I said before, landlords did used to say, I'm selling the property, and it might have been because they didn't like the tenant that was in. That can't happen now. If a landlord is selling the property, they have to sell the property. And that is obviously, if they don't sell it, it has to sit vacant for a period of 12 months, which incurs costs to the landlord, council tax, vacant properties, bills on vacant properties as well. So this is really, really a headline. of obviously what's going on. Ooh, sorry about that. Where was I? So this also has the basis for student lets as well. However, this only applies to HMO student lets. So excluding 1 and 2 bed student properties only applies to properties that are fully occupied by students and only applies where the tenancy was signed less than 6 months prior to the tenants being allowed to occupy the premises. This will have huge effects on the student sector, and I imagine a lot of the landlords will look closely at whether they wish to continue letting in this sector or at all. So it's going to have a big, massive impact. So students not having been able to market the property 9 months in advance because students, they do get a lot of money from student lets. And also landlords using that they're selling the property, they're going to actually have to sell the property if that isn't the case. So let's look at the impact. So there was also amendments for existing grounds. Most notably, ground one is widened, allowing for landlords to recover possession for occupation by children, not just by themselves. By with similar limits to ground 1A in terms of use in the first 12 months and letting out. So ground 8, which is the mandatory possession ground for rent arrears, also sees substantial modification, with the notice period being increased from 2 weeks to 4, and the level of arrears being increased from 2 months to 3. So this is huge. Oh well, another huge headline. So if a tenant is in arrears due to the delays with universal credit, that is also arrears that cannot be counted for the purpose of determining the arrears figure. They've also got to stay in 3 months full worth of arrears. So if a tenant is coming up to the 3 months full worth of arrears, which is when you're going to obviously serve the notice, if they pay a proportion of that 3 months arrears, the whole situation starts again, the whole scenario and the whole notice. You can't serve any notice because they have cleared 1, 2, 6 weeks of them 3 months arrears. There'll be a real need for landlords and agents to fully understand the grounds of possession if they are able to use them effectively. And there will also be much more need to collect evidence in relation to grounds if landlords are wanting to be confident in gaining possession. So if you're a management agent, you're looking to go into fully managed and you're looking to be a lettings agent, it's going to be really important that you understand the grounds of possession and what notices can apply to that. Mortgages, no one's really thought of mortgages, but mortgage lenders will also need to consider how this will work for them as well. So currently, where a lender takes over a property with a tenant in situ, they tend to get an LPA receiver to serve the Section 21 for them on their behalf, so on behalf of the landlord. And that's currently being looked at that won't be the case. It'll have to be in their own name. So of the landlord's name or who's purchasing the property. So again, it has implications not only just for us as letting agents, but mortgage advisors and mortgage lenders are going to have to also know the ins and outs of the rented bill as well. So tenancy terms. Oh, sorry. There is a new requirement to give tenants a written statement of their tenancy in terms that can be specified in regulations. There is no information on what this will look like, but I've anticipated that some of the information from the existing How to Rent guide will be incorporated more directly into tenancy agreements and possibly other limits of requirements on clause types. There'll be restrictions on recovery of possessions, like we've just said, and potentially civil penalties and rent payment orders for getting this wrong. So it's likely to be an important issue for landlords and us as letting agents and will lead to a lot of temporarily upheaval. So just so you're aware, you're most probably thinking, oh my God, I've got an existing portfolio, or oh, I'm new. There's going to be a bit of a grey area from when the Renters' Rights Bill comes into place. There's going to be a transitional area, a period of people being on fixed term tenancies and obviously going on to the new where there's no fixed term tenancy agreements. There will be a proportionment of time. Again, like I've said, we don't know how long that's going to be. Will it be 9 months? Will it be a year? Will it be 3 months? Will it be less? We don't really know that at the moment, but we have advised as an industry to Parliament that time of frame of some time for that transition needs to happen. It happens in Wales when they changed, so it will happen for us. So don't worry too much. So the PRS, so landlords, so PRS database and redress schemes. This is a big one. So landlords will need to join both the PRS database and the redress scheme and pay a fee for both of them, where currently it's just us as agents. It will not be permissible to market a property until this sign up has happened, so the speed of the process will be a concern. This will increase costs, and I have doubts about the suggested figure for these costs given the impact assessment. There is a power to give some of the PRS database money to the local authorities, and I imagine some of these local authorities are pushing hard for that money to be awarded to help with the funding issues. If this is to be done, it might also reduce the incentive for local authorities to press on with selective licensing schemes that are dotted around the UK. So that might be something that landlords might look for as well. So there are some areas in the UK, Liverpool, where obviously you can hear I'm from, being one of them. We do have a selective licensing scheme, which means that landlords in certain areas of Liverpool and so under certain postcodes have to pay into a licensing scheme to make sure that they're not slum landlords, basically, and there are things that they have to adhere to. Now, if we go down this route where they have to be part of the PRS and the redress scheme, and then funds go to the local authority, there is an argument that selective licensing will go in certain councils, but that is up to the local authority to do that. So at the moment, it's not necessarily one of them situations where they're going to be doing it. We have no idea, like we don't know how much it's going to cost a landlord to register to be part of the PRS database and to be part of the redress scheme. We have no idea on cost of that at the moment. So the decent home standard is to be fitted into the HHSRS. Now, if you don't know what that is, your inventory clerk will. If you don't know what that is, we do cover this at induction. So we do have basically, we cover a whole day on compliance and legislation. But Arab's Law, which is a massive new part of the Writers' Rent Bill, and it will be coming into effect. It's already in the social sector, so it's not in the private rental sector, but it is already into the social sector, and it is to be expanded into our sector as well. So until various reviews and consultations are published, it is impossible to say much about how these will work. The government has been clear that it will consider this further. In truth, I do wonder if these provisions will be implemented at all. I do think they provide much additional benefit for the work required to deal with them, although the general political pressure on improvement standards may trump that point and lead it to happening anyway. So it is important to understand the government are looking at changes, and Arab's Law, really sad story, little boy that died because of mold in his social housing home with his mother and father. Really, really sad. That changed, and it wasn't long ago. That has changed the law in the social sector, and we are seeing steps, and that is coming into place. And we are seeing steps for the PRS to have them changes. There's so many changes to the Writers' Rent Bill. It is hard to fathom how the government are going to, one, police it, do it, and how long that time is going to be implemented to obviously have it instructed. So by saying there's going to be a landlord register and they're all going to have PRS and they're all going to have the redress scheme, who is policing that? Are the local authorities employing more staff? What does that look for us as taxpayers? So there's a massive, massive debate going on, and this is why it's had 3 readings. Hopefully it's the 3rd and final reading, but like I say, there are still many amendments that are a bit up in the air. So it is really, really important for you as letting agents and professions, landlords, whatever you may be on this call today, to be educated and to keep up to date with the Writers' Rent Bill. Overbidding restrictions. So again, that's massive. And there are new restrictions on how properties are to be marketed. Landlords must not advertise properties for rent without specifying a rental price. So basically, no rental bidder. You can't go, well, they've offered 1,500, you're going to offer 15,500. There's going to be no rental bidding laws, and everything needs to be put in writing. So that's something that is going to come into play once this has been fully passed and is fully in our industry. So breakdown of rent increases changes. So I consider this as one of the largest changes in the Writers' Rent Bill, and the one which is likely to have the greatest practical effect. So the ban, any form of agreement to increase rent will do not run through the statutory Section 13 increase process. This exists now, but it's not used a great deal as most landlords sign a new fixed term agreement with a higher rent. So in future, all rent increases will have to go through the statutory process. So tenants will have to be sent a notice, which has a standard form setting out the proposed new rent. they must get at least 2 months' notice of this proposed rent or this proposed increase, which is up from the current position for 1 month. So a landlord, once they have served the Section 13 notice, can agree a lower rent than the one on the notice with the tenant, but they must do so in writing. So everything has to be in writing. And a tenant can refuse a rental increase, and they can only do it once every year as well. So big changes happening. You can't just, kick them out on no fault evictions, put it on with another agent, get £500 more or however much more, and then put a new tenant in. It's our industry is completely changing. So here's a breakdown of the rent increase changes. During the 2 month, So during the 2 month notice period, the tenant can contest the rental increase, like I've just said, and it can go to tribunal, and it is free for them to do so. So that's really important, that they can take it to tribunal and it is free. If the tenant does not contest the increase within the notice period, then the rent goes up automatically and the tenant loses their ability to complain about it. If the tenant does go to tribunal, then the rent increase is deferred and will not take place until it has been determined by the tribunal. So things are changing to benefit the tenant, but there are obviously timeframes that the tenant has to adhere to make sure that they get their full power on a rental increase. Rent in advance, another biggie. One of the new additional provisions added to the bill is to ban rent in advance. This is pretty sweeping in terms of how it operates, as it both amends the Housing Act 1988 and also amends the Tenant Fees Act. So rent in advance, being any rent over 1 month, will be banned for the Housing Act 1988 tenancies. So all 1988 tenancies, that will have a massive effect, but it'll also be banned for licenses and also for student tenancies that are falling outside the scope of the Housing Act. So like I just said before, landlords market the property 6 months in advance. They take big deposits, so the student definitely comes back for year 2, year 3, and they take a lot of rent, and they usually pay up front, especially overseas tenants. So this is massively changing. But it is pretty hard to see how the rent in advance, although there are probably ways how it can actually work, they haven't said how it's going to work. So again, it's something that's really, really great. So the government has asserted that these changes are intended to help tenants, but they rather seem to have got the wrong end of the stick. They are the belief that it is the tenants against each other. So the bidding wars, they're always not wanting to put prices up, or sorry, rentals up. So it's kind of a funny one at the moment, because it's all to be part of, leading the tenant and having the tenant in the middle. But there's so many different factors that are going to change that it does take away some of the tenants' rights. Having fixed terms, not many tenants, some tenants really want to sign 12 months. Is that really a right of us to take that away, or the government to take that away? So there could be some backfire in the new Renters' Rights Bill, and that's why I think it won't go to Royal Assent until the summer. As much as they said it was going to be spring, I can't really see that happening, and I can't really see it being implemented this year. They did want to do it at the back end of the summer, maybe autumn 2025, but the likelihood is, or what we're hearing in the industry, it could possibly be the beginning of 2026. Another set of provisions inserted at third reading relates to guarantors, and specifically their liability where a tenant dies. So this is quite sad. So they are somewhat complex, as you can imagine. If there is only one tenant and they die, then the guarantor ceases to be liable for the rent, but remains liable for any losses caused by breaches of the tenancy agreement. If there are 2 or more tenants and only one dies, then the guarantor remains liable in full. So it kind of begs the question of, why is that being the way? And that has only come into play. So that's one of the big amendments that is getting looked at, and where there's been requests for amendments on this as well. Pets. So we all love our pets, and this is a big one. It's more big for tenants because, there has been times where tenants have refused properties because they've got a cat, they've got a dog, and the landlord just won't allow it. So legislation requires landlords to accept pets from tenants where they are reasonably requested. There is nothing to stop landlords from advertising properties as unsuitable for pets or refusing tenants with pets, but once a tenant is in, they are entitled to seek a pet, and the landlord must allow this unless it is unreasonable unreasonable for them to refuse. So if it's a one-bedroom flat or a studio and they want a Great Dane, obviously that isn't great for the property and that can have the green light to say no. So it's one of them where tenants have been refused and they have been discriminated against because they have a pet, especially a family. You know, the pet might be there for the children, the pet might be there for a reason. So it's really important to read up on the pets because if a tenant in situ and gets a pet without any permission, then that used to be potentially a section 21 being issued and a no fault eviction because the landlord just doesn't like pets. But obviously, that's not the case anymore. Discrimination, I've just briefly mentioned it. So it also, the Right to Rent Bill also prohibits discrimination against tenants on the basis that they have children or they have children visiting or on the basis that they are in receipt of benefits. So there was once upon a time where, I don't know if anyone's got the experience of this, we did used to put as agents on our Rightmove ads, no DSS, no housing benefits. And that was because the landlords had instructed that they didn't want anyone in receipt of benefits. That cannot happen anymore. Also, you can't, we used to say no children, no pets, no smokers. But them days are gone. So you can't discriminate. You can't say no children. The landlord has to allow children if it's a 3-bedroom house. You can't say no to obviously housing benefits as well. Um, so affordability checks are allowed, but unclear whether benefit payments must be counted in to that effect. So there is still some grey area on discrimination on housing benefits and how affordability can actually be checked correctly. And if people are getting universal credit or they're getting PIP or they're getting anything else, then does that count into their affordability? So that's still a grey area as well. Local authority duties. So local authorities are placed under a new duty to enforce housing law in the area of responsibility. For local authorities, this is a considerable change and one they are going to find very hard to meet with the current pressures on budgets. So like I said to you before, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a massive recruitment call for local authorities. And then how are they going to police if landlords are on the database? Is that going to be primarily somebody's new job? Is that a new, department? Do they have the funds to fund this? And that is a massive, massive question mark and a real worry because all these amendments and all these changes to the Right of Rent Bill are fantastic. It does open up the argument of, who's it more in line for, tenants or for landlords, or is it for the government, or is it for local authorisations? It does put a lot of pressure on, and it does make you ask the question of budgets. Councils are, filling up our potholes on our roads. Are they going to be able to police landlords and the amount of private rental sector landlords we have? Because the government, pretty much, this is the argument, the government haven't ever hit their quotation or criteria of new house builds in our areas. Rent repayment orders. So there are also changes to the rent repayment order regime. There are new options for seeking orders for some of the new offences that the bill creates. So there is also a series of amendments that stop landlords escaping liability by using rent to rent schemes and pointing out their sub tenants. This will also make landlords much more nervous, or it should make them much more nervous about who is subletting their property, as they may well be liable for failures by them. So this opens up a massive, massive argument too. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there, property. We also do on our property franchise, we do strategies on rent to rent. So this is huge. Who's liable if you're renting out a property and you know that it's being sublet or subrented? Whose liability does it fall on if everything's not done in terms of maintenance, in terms of the correct paperwork being set and given to the tenant, and any arrears chasing as well? So huge. And, it's part of the bill that is getting a lot of scrutiny as well at the moment. So my conclusions on the Renters' Rights Bill, you'd be happy we're coming up to the end, but it's a huge set of changes. And as I've said throughout today's webinar, it's still very grey. It's opening up a lot of debates. It opens up a lot of arguments. And as much as it's being passed and it's had its third reading and it's going to Royal Assent, things like we've seen last year, things can change. As an industry, we can petition. And we did put a petition to the House of Commons last year. And that's why, it fell by the wayside. And then Labour have picked it back up and they've run with it. But it's huge. The effects of it are far-reaching, and I doubt I've really picked them all up today. We've literally gone through them all, the headlines, but there is so much. So if you do have the time, always read up and research. Many of these changes will not really be seen until the entire bill is being passed and brought into effect. And like if there's one, like I've been saying, if there's one big message to send home from this, none of this is certain. So we don't know how long it's going to be that they are brought into effect. Um, Even then, it was likely to take years before we see all the effects. So the local housing authority, the database for landlords, when are they going to be implemented and what is their time frame? We need to know everything about basically how it's going to be implemented from a government perspective. So us as agents and landlords can and tenants can understand when this is going to be in place. So a lot to take in, and I'm really, really aware that it is a lot, but I really appreciate obviously you being here watching it all. But how can we help as a franchisor? I think you've taken away from today that we do support our agents. We support them massively, by having our bespoke software, by having face-to-face training. We have a national brand. We've really invested into prop tech. So for you as an agent, that streamlined process is actually streamlined. You can pre-populate your tenancies and you know exactly where they are and how they're up to date. Your landlords are confident because you are part of a national brand. So Source has been around for the last 8 years. We've got a huge reputation in the property investment industry. And now we are branching out to obviously lettings. We're in our first year and we've got some really successful agents under our belt, who are obviously fantastic and providing brilliant customer service to their local landlords. And they are leaning on us for support, and we are doing everything that we can to make sure that they're up to date with the Writers' Rent Bill. But more importantly, any legislation that changes or any licensing in their local areas or Article 4s for HMOs, for example, we're giving them that up-to-date information and we're having one-to-ones with them. So if you would be interested in knowing how we can help you scale up your business, we have strategies for that, for lettings solely focused. Or if you are wanting to start out and become a lettings agent, then more than happy for you to reach out to us. You will have our contact details. You will have had my link sent to you, so you can book in for a call with myself. But the main part is from today's call or webinar, sorry, is that this is the biggest change that the rental market has ever seen, or the rental industry. And as professionals, we need to be ready. I think we are, but it just needs to be determined on exactly time frames and what will be in the Writers' Rent Bill. But if you're going alone and you want to be part of something that you're not on your own, and you want to feel supported and part of a community, then that's where Source Living can come into it. And these are just some of our perks on the screen as to why some people in the industry to come and work with us, and build a fantastic lettings business. So thank you very much for your time. You will be receiving an email. So we will send you the link to the government site so you know where you can see that transparent time frame of everything that's happening with the Writers' Rent Bill, and also a link to my Calendly. So if you do want further information and you want to know how I can support you and mentor you into your business and make it successful, and how Source Living can help that with our package, then please book in a call with myself. But other than that, I hope I haven't given you too much food for thought for the Renters' Rights Bill. And we will be sending out a Renters' Rights Bill, frequently asked questions and a little brochure as well. So thank you very much for your time today. Thank you. Oh, I've got a question. How would you advise to reach out to hosts for co-hosting for Airbnb and various other rental platforms? So networking is huge. Networking is massive on how you can help grow your business. Landlords who would do Airbnb, so serviced accommodation, they're always looking for somebody that can do it in-house and do everything else themselves. The legislation on serviced accommodation will eventually change as well. So they will be wanting a management agent, and that's where Source Living, we do all three. So we do HMO lettings, we do service accommodation lettings, and we do residential lettings as well. So by networking, social media, and also by having us backing you as well is huge. And we do shout about our agents, and we do welcome posts as well. So it's all about exposure, but knowing your stuff, having the experience. If you don't have the experience, we can help you in that as well. And our bespoke CRM has a channel manager built at the back, so you'll be able to successfully do a service accommodation business through our CRM as well. And I think, guys, that's it. So yeah, we'll get everything sent out to you, but from me, that's absolutely everything. So thank you all for joining and have a pleasant afternoon.